Oizvov. So now the Rebbe explains the idea why Torah is redeems the level of ציון, and mitzvahs redeem the level of Shaveh. That is mitzdaka, gemulus chasodim. So the Rebbe explains the difference between Torah and mitzvahs is that Torah essentially is like Tziyun in of itself, because Torah comes down into the world and nothing can touch it. It remains removed from the world. A person who is Tomei can study Torah because Torah is like Aish. It's not bihislapshus. It remains removed. Mitzvahs dress up in the physicality of the world. That's why the Torah reveals and lets the tziyun of the neshama function. And mitzvahs allow the turnaround from the shoveha into kedusha. Vav, let's look inside. V'hine etzem ha'inyan. This idea itself of Torah mitzvah u'mehataimim, and also some of the reasons shahabediyah, the b'chinas etzem ha'neshama hi b'mishpat shu ha'Torah, that the redemption of the essence of the soul is mishpat, which is Torah. V'abediyah the b'chinas koiches ha'neshama shabo b'shivya, and how do we redeem the level of the powers of the neshama that came into captivity? So there's a difference how we take out of Golus the etzem haneshama, and how the powers of the neshama are taken out of captivity. That the etzem haneshama is through Torah b'mishpat, and the pediya shaveo, the b'chinas koiches haneshama shabo b'shivya, the powers of the soul that went into captivity, he adei tzedakah she klolus hamitzvos. That is through tzedakah. Shavel b'tzedakah, which is mitzvahs in general. Why is Torah redeeming the etzem haneshama, and mitzvahs are redeeming the koiches haneshama? Because Torah and mitzvahs themselves are similar to the etzem haneshama. Torah is like the etzem haneshama. Mitzvahs is like the koiches haneshama. The hine HaTorah gam k'meish yordo l'mato. Torah, even as the Torah has descended below, the way the Torah is over here. V'afilu be'ez shenilemedes al yidei odom she'enoi toher. Even at the time that the person who is studying the Torah is not clean, he k'moshe l'maylo. The Torah remains as it's above. It's down here, but it remains in its status of above. It's Dvar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's the words of Hashem. Ukedroshas Razal al Haposik Haloikoi Dvarakeish. And like the sages of blessed memory expounded on the verse, what is the meaning? Halokoi dvorek eish. My fire, my words is like fire. Ma eish eine makabel tuma. Av divrei Torah eine makabel tuma, which means that the words of Torah remain always the dvar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They don't become impure. So you see that even the way the Torah is below, it's still considered. It's still always the dvar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Umekiven shahat Torah eino b'bchinas islapshus. Since Torah is not in the level of dressing up, that's why the idea of captivity doesn't apply to it. Because it doesn't come down. It cannot be taken into captivity. It's always the Dvar Hashem. So why do you need to redeem it? But yet, but still, the idea of Padiyah does apply this. Because of the matters in which it descended, even though it doesn't dress up in them, because it always remains above, but it still has descended into physical matters. After Shatiya Bahem, after Shatiya Bihalam. It's possible that the Torah is Behelem, that you don't see in it the Dvar Havaya. You don't see in it that it's the Ke'esh. You see in it blocked, so you still need to point it, even though it's not become Tomei, it still remains the Dvar Havaya. That is as far as Torah goes. Omnam ha-mitzvahs, but mitzvahs, mikivon sheni slapshu b'dvarim gashmim, since they dressed up in physical matters. Mitzvahs are in physical matters. Tzitzis b'tzemer gashmi, tefillin b'klav gashmi b'chulu. Tzitzis in physical wool, and tefillin in physical parchment chulu. V'gam ha-mitzvahs, the chayvas ha-levaves, tzorich liyus nirgoshes b'moyach v'lev ha-gashmi. And also mitzvahs that are obligation of the heart. So Mela, you're going to say the mitzvahs which you do physical, those are dressed up. But what about Avas Hashem, Yiras Hashem, the levels of mitzvahs that are in the heart? How are they physical? But that's also physical because the heart needs to, and the mind, the mitzvahs in the mind also need to actually be physically impacted. V'gam ha-mitzvahs the chayvus halavavis. Also the mitzvah chayvus halavavis, tzorich liyis nirgoshes b'moyach v'lev hagashmi. They need to be felt in the mind and the physical heart. Mochein shayich bahem inyan hashivya. That's why it applies to them the idea they can go into captivity because they are in physical matters, dressed in physical matters, so they can get captured there. As explained elsewhere, in the idea that it's written, I'm rejoicing over your saying, which is mitzvahs, like one who takes out great spoil, a lot of spoil, which means that the captivity that you were in, the mitzvah takes out from that spoil that comes from being in captivity. Mitzvahs is to take out the spoil. That means that you spoil, take out from the lumazeh. That is mitzvahs, and that takes out the krichas haneshama. So Torah, which remains in its higher level, reveals the etzem haneshama, the pnimius halev, and mitzvahs, which function is to take out from the other side. Sholol is what is shovel, tzedakah takes it out. Up to here, the Rebbe was talking about the ציון and the Mishpat and the Shoveha as it is in the soul of man, the Nefesh HaAdam. And now, the Rebbe is going to talk about the different level of ציון and Shoveha, the different levels In all three, in Oshon, Olam, Shono, Nefesh, there is the avodah of a yid. In Nefesh, there's avodah by a yid in the level of ציון, which is the level of Torah. There's an avodah of a yid in the level of mitzvahs. Within the yid, amongst the yidden in general, there's some yidden which avodah is ציון, some yidden and the avodah is level Shavel. In avodah from the yid. Some further, some yidden in the level of tzaddikim, the level of ציון, some of the level of Vishaveho, that's the level of Balit Tshuva. And then the Rebbe is going to go out also discussing that also in the world, there's the world in space, Olam, in space, there is Eretz Yisrael, that's ציון, and then there's Chutz La'aretz, that's Shavel. Then the Rebbe is going to talk in Zman. The holy times are ציון, and not holy time, regular days, or sometimes the opposite days are Shavel, as the Rebbe will continue to develop this ideas of ציון and Shavel as they apply in all areas. Now, the first we'll just concentrate on the two levels in the Avodas Hashem. There is those that serve Hashem with the category of ציון, or within the person, the serving Hashem with the category of ציון, and then serving Hashem with the category of Shavel, and then how it divides by Yidden in general. Hine, Zay. Based in Yonim Hanal, the two above mentioned ideas, Bechinas ציון b'mishpat tefda, u'bechinas b'shavel b'tzedakah. The level of ציון, which is in the pasuk, which is redeemed through mishpat, and the shavel v'tzedakah, yeshnam b'chol gimul habechinas, that exists in all three levels, the olam, shana, v'nefesh. Normally, we know that this mirrors in all areas in the world. That would be space. We have these ציון and Shaveha, and in Shana in time, Zman, and also Nefesh in person. B'chinas Nefesh Yeshnom, and when we talk about Nefesh, we're talking about individually and as collectively as a Jewish people. Yeshnom Hein b'kol echad v'echad miYisrael, both by each and every one of the Jewish people. V'hein b'chlolus Yisrael, also Jews in general are divided in the two sets of avodas. And the fact that it needs to be also in general by, we say, Jewish category, because since there is by an individual and the yin, you can't separate them, what goes on as a different individuals or by an individual also goes on by as a group. Because every individual really is also a full world. So what we find by an individual yid is already a whole world over there. The Mishnah says why a person was created singular is the whole world, like Adam Arishan, because to say that the whole world is B'shvili Nivra Olam, which means a person is like the whole world. So what takes place by this individual is the whole world. And then that takes place in the whole world, and whatever takes place in the whole world takes place by the person. How do you move on? So it's understood that the ideas that is by every one of the Yidden also exist by the Yidden in general. And the aspects that affect Yidden in general also exist by each and every one individually. So first, the Rebbe talks about individually. The Kol Echad V'Echad Yisrael by each one mitzad avedosei b'kava Torah. When you work in the area of Torah, that's in a level he's doing hu b'bechinas tzin b'mishpat tipodet. So the person is in the level of Tzion, which is redeemed b'mishpat. Umitzad avedosei b'kav ha-mitzvahs, and when you're working in the area, in the line of mitzvahs, hu b'bechinas v'shaveh b'tzedakah, then you are in the level of shaveh b'tzedakah. Balderech zehu gam b'chlalus Yisrael, and similar to this is also by Yidden in general. So nechlokim lebeis sugim Yisachar uzvun. The Yidden are divided into two categories. So just like the Yid has his avodah in Torah and mitzvahs, generally the Yidden are divided into two categories. Yisachar uzvun. The tribe of Yisachar, which is Torah, the tribe of Zvulun, which is mitzvahs. Morei Torah, masters of Torah, Morei Uvdin Tovin, and masters of good deeds, of mitzvahs. The Morei Torah, those masters of Torah, they're in the level of Tzia in B'mishpat Tipoda. Morei Uvdin Tovin, and the masters of good deeds are in the level of Shaveh B'Tzedakah. And even more general, so this is within Torah, but more general is the difference between Baal Tshuva and Tzadikim. The difference between Tzadikim and Baal Tshuva. The Tzadikim ein shayich inyan hashiv yechaz shalom. By Tzadikim, it doesn't apply the idea of captivity, Shaharei lo ye'una le'tzadik kol oven, because by a tzaddik, we say nothing bad, nothing of no aved, nothing will happen to the tzaddik, which means he remains like ציון, not impacted. That's would be generally a tzaddik. Balachas kama v'kama, and how much more so tzaddikim shehem bebechinas v'li b'chol b'kirvi, those tzaddikim that are in the level of b'chol b'kirvi, hello sha'afal pikein gam bahem shayich inyan habdiyah. So if he's a tzaddik li b'chol b'kirvi, why do we need to redeem him? He's the level of a tzaddik that has no even connection to anything to be in Golus even, because there's no Yetzer Hara there. Elosh Afa explains the Rebbe, Gam Bahem, even at that level of a tzaddik that has no Yetzer Hara, Gam Bahem Shaykh Inyan Habdim. It also applies to the, what is there to redeem there? So it says, Valderech, this will be similar, Shalupamim Hatzadik Nitfas Babainador. Sometimes we say that tzaddik gets caught up in the sin of the generation. So even though his own no sins for him, the cholal b'kirbi, but the sin of the generation, the tzaddik gets caught up in it. Well, derech mashikosu gabe Moshe, or similar to what it's written by Moshe. This Eibush says to Moshe, Lech reid kishiches amcho. You descend. They sent them down from the mountain. They sent them down because your nation has corrupted, meaning because of the sins, because of the corruption, the shiches of Amcha, of the people, this brings down a descent in Moshe Rabbeinu. Shemitzad shiches Amcha, because the nation has corrupted, Nasi Yerida Gam Boy, that brought about the descent also in Moshe. But still, since the descent, v'gam kasheru nitfas ba'oven hadoir, hurak mitzed inyonim shemechutz mimenu. Since the descent, even when he is caught up in the sin of the generation, means they bring him down, So that bringing it down is not he himself. It's not the tzaddik himself. This is only because external matters, because of the nation, because of the other people, but not the tzaddik himself. So therefore, Harigam Os Einei B'Shivya Chas v'Shalom. So even when his descent, he's not in captivity, God forbid. Kinyonoi Shal HaTzadik Hu Simono Delakus Be'almo. Because the idea of a tzaddik is Sion. He's just a marker. He's Simone Delakus Ba'almo. He's just a sign, a marker for a lakus in the world. He represents the way godliness is below. That's the tzaddik. So he's only a not independent entity. He's just representing above. He's a marker for above. The mitziuse shel tzaddik. What is the entity? What is the tzaddik? Is the fact is shehu shluchei shel Adam ha'elyon, that he is an agent of the Supreme of Hashem. B'shluchei shel Adam hu k'meisei mamish, and the agent of Hashem is like Hashem mamish. He is godliness in the world. He is non-entity of himself. He represents. He's a tziyun. He's an agent of above. And he's like Hashem. That's what the person is in this world. And therefore, even when he's in a descent, the person's redemption is through Torah. Because Torah, this idea, that also when you're down below, it's godliness v'gilu, canal as we said before, that my words are like fire, which Torah is not makabel tuma. So that means this idea that Torah, while it's below, it is still godly, it's still Eish, is more revealed by the level in Torah. By Torah, you see that, and therefore, the redemption of the tzaddik who gets into exile, externalities, because it's not affected, is through Torah, which Torah is not impacted by the descent into the world. It remains ki'esh and openly begilu yesem. Masha'ekin habal shuva. As opposed to when we talk about shuva, sha'avedosam hilahoitzias anitzoitzis shenoflu v'nishbu bil'umazeh. Their work is to take out the sparks that have fallen and been captured on the other side. Ubedugmas begedusha mashekosu vayish b'menu shavi. And in Kedusha, this would be like this. You have the sparks that fell in the other side, but in Kedusha, we say vayish b'menu shavi. That they took from Kedusha, the word that they took Shivcha, but they took from the Kedusha, so there is captivity. There is captivity by the Baal Tshuva. A spark has come down in the other side. They were captured. And now we have to take out from captivity. So how is the redemption from this captivity? It needs to be in a similar way. That's why those who were in captivity need charity. The way their redemption is through the line of tzedakah. Shehi klolus hamitzvos. That tzedakah, which is basically the act of kindness, charity. All mitzvahs all mitzvahs represented the Ramach Ivorim, the whole body, But charity is on the right. That's the yamin. The chol haguf nichlal b'yamin. All of the body is included in the right hand side from Igeres HaKodesh, meaning it's all in the level of mitzvahs, all the mitzvahs on the level of tzedakah, which becomes the general mitzvahs, as the whole body included to the right in the level of chesed. All the mitzvahs represent all the body, but tzedakah is the right side of the body, and everything is included in the right. So we have to use the level of tzedakah of all the mitzvahs to take out the captives of the Baal Tshuva that was captured. The Yish B'menu is to take it out. The Sha'avodah Kava Mitzvah is by from the Shvi V'Sholol, because that's the way of mitzvahs, that they work in a way that there is captured and spoiled. They take out from the other side. V'al derech ha'mevuar b'Igeres HaKodesh, similar to what's explained in the Igeres HaKodesh, she'ikir havodas havaya b'itim halolu be'ikves Mashiach, that the main service in nowadays in the hills of Mashiach, he avodas hatzedakah, is mainly the avodah of tzedakah, and explains ubidloi kibizman hashas, not at the way as it was in the time of the Gemara, in the time of the Talmud. Shetalmud Torah ikir avodah shalem. Their main focus, their main avodah was learning Torah. Today we have to do mitzvahs, and we need to take out this spoil. Why is that? Ki bichdei lahalois asukas David shenofla ad b'chinas raglayim b'akvayim. Because in order to raise the hut of David, the sukkah of David, it's fallen down on the other side. It's shavel. It fell ad b'chinas raglayim b'akvayim, fell to the level which is called the feet, the heels, descended very low. That is the level of doing. Tzarich liyes, meaning asiya as the lowest level, not the intellect, not the emotion, not the higher faculties, but it's come down into the level of asiya, the avodah level of asiya, which is similar to the idea of tshuva. About tshuva, tzarich li is gam ha'avodah b'bchinas asiya dafka. So that's what it explains in the Igeres HaKodesh, that we need to also do an asiya, shimaisa tzedakah. Tzedakah similar, in order to take out the sparks by abal tshuva from the other sides in a way, a sholol, kimoitze sholol rov. The idea of shuv sholol has to be through the avodah of mitzvahs.